Wrong place to break down, old man. That's what someone chuckled when a grizzled old veteran's bicycle wobbled, then gave out entirely. Right outside the toughest biker bar in town. Leather jackets gleamed in the sun. Tattooed arms rested on tables. Smirking faces watched as the man struggled to push his broken bike past the crowd. He didn't ask for help, didn't even lift his eyes. And then the loudest man in the group stood up, stepped outside, and did something no one saw coming. If you believe honor recognizes its own even across very different battlefields, comment respect below. James Jimmy Carver had long accepted that at 70, life wasn't going to get easier. He was a man of routine and resilience. 3 years earlier, a cluster of strokes had left him with shaky hands and blurred vision. His doctor and the DMV had agreed. No more driving. That was a hard pill to swallow for a Vietnam veteran who had always lived by the creed of self-reliance. But Jimmy was a Marine. He adapted, just like he had to the jungle terrain of Southeast Asia half a century before. His pension was modest, but enough. It paid the rent on a small, quiet apartment on the town's east side, and his salvation came in the form of an old, weather-worn Schwinn bicycle. It became his lifeline, his connection to the world beyond those 4 apartment walls. 3 times a week, without fail, Jimmy would ride the 4-mile round trip to Wilson's grocery. He packed the bike's basket and rear panniers with canned goods, fruit, and a loaf of bread or two, then pedaled home in silence, legs grinding and joints aching. But he didn't complain. He was thankful for the motion, thankful he still could. That Tuesday in May began like many others. The weather was mild, his arthritis wasn't flaring, and the chain had behaved so far. But halfway home, he heard the dreaded metallic ping. A soft one, but unmistakable. Jimmy knew that sound like he knew the clack of a rifle bolt. The chain was failing. He gently squeezed the brakes, hoping to coast to a stop. But the chain snapped completely, and the bike jolted to a halt. Jimmy, still balanced, drifted forward a few feet, right to the front of a building he had hoped to avoid forever, the Steel Stallions Bar. It was a converted warehouse, infamous in the region. A clubhouse for one of the roughest motorcycle clubs in the county. Dozens of gleaming Harleys filled the parking lot. On the patio, loud laughter echoed among rows of tattooed bikers lounging at tables, surrounded by empty beer bottles and cigarette smoke. Jimmy sized up the situation like the trained Marine he once was. This was hostile ground. Steel Stallions didn't have the friendliest reputation. Loud engines, louder egos, not a crowd known for patience. As he knelt to inspect his busted chain, chuckles rose from the patio. A sarcastic voice called out, "Maybe he took a wrong turn from the retirement home." Laughter erupted. Another shouted, "Bet that bike's seen more action than him." Jimmy didn't react. He didn't flinch. He just pulled out a small, rusty multi-tool from his pocket. His fingers trembled, not just from the tremors, but from the dozens of eyes watching him like he was a sideshow. Phones were already out. One younger biker started recording. "Going to post this. Battle of the Broken Bike. Bet it goes viral." Jimmy focused on the chain, tried to reconnect the links with a calm determination born from years of worse moments. But then his fingers slipped. The tool clattered to the pavement. As he bent to pick it up, the unbalanced bike tipped sideways. Groceries spilled. Canned goods clanked across the pavement. Apples rolled, some stopping at the boots of watching bikers. That drew more laughter. Still, Jimmy stayed silent. One item at a time, he picked everything up. There was no panic, no shame, only the quiet resolve of a man who had endured much worse. "Someone should help the old-timer," a woman's voice murmured. She was quickly hushed. "Why? This is the best entertainment we've had all week." Jimmy had just retrieved the last apple when the atmosphere shifted. Suddenly, sharply. The laughter died. Conversations halted. Phones lowered. Jimmy's senses, honed decades earlier in the jungle, told him something had changed. A huge figure stepped out from the bar's entrance. He was massive, at least 6 feet 4 inches, with broad shoulders beneath a leather vest embroidered with the Steel Stallion's insignia and one word stitched in bold, President. Tattoos covered his arms, military insignias intertwined with motorcycle emblems. His beard was streaked with gray, his gaze piercing and unreadable. This was Mike "Crusher" Dalton, the club's founder, a man whose legend stretched beyond state lines, fistfights, arrest records, loyalty to his crew, and a temper no one dared test. Crusher looked around, saw the toppled groceries, the broken chain, the club members holding phones. He said nothing. Then he walked straight toward Jimmy. The crunch of his boots on the gravel cut through the silence. Jimmy stood as tall as his spine would allow. He met Crusher's gaze without flinching. Crusher looked him over, looked at the others. Something in his expression changed. Without a word, he bent down and lifted the bicycle effortlessly. "You coming?" he said, over his shoulder. The tone was gruff, but not unkind. Jimmy gathered his groceries and followed. The crowd stared. Crusher turned back at the door. "Anyone here got a toolkit and an ounce of respect? Get over here now!" There was a moment of hesitation, but then something remarkable happened. One biker stood, then another, then 3 more. Soon the entire patio rose. "I've got tools in my saddlebag. I've got a spare chain. My dad had a Schwinn. I can help adjust the brakes." The mocking crowd had transformed into a team. Inside, the atmosphere shifted completely. Music quieted. Conversations paused. Crusher cleared a pool table with one powerful swipe and gently laid Jimmy's bike across it. "Let's see what we're working with," he said. Toolkits opened. Grease-stained hands got to work. The chain was ruined. Brake cables were frayed, bearings dry. But no one hesitated. And then, Crusher turned to Jimmy. He reached toward the old man's neck. Not aggressively, but carefully. Jimmy stiffened until he saw what Crusher was doing, lifting the dog tags that had hung beneath Jimmy's shirt. "James Carver," Crusher read aloud. "3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, Vietnam, 68. The room went dead silent. "You were a Marine," Crusher said, not asking, but honoring. Jimmy nodded once. "Still am, just older now." From the back, a young biker stepped forward. "Carver, from Lima Company?" Jimmy's brow furrowed. "My old man was Timothy Reynolds. He served under you, at Quezon." Jimmy's eyes softened. "Reynolds. Good radio man. Brave. Took shrapnel in both legs. He always said he survived because you carried him 1.5 miles to the evac point." Murmurs spread. The room had changed again, from awe to reverence. "My dad passed 3 years ago, Agent Orange." Jimmy nodded grimly. "Too many of us." Crusher turned to the club. "We're not just fixing this bike," he said. "We're rebuilding it, whatever it takes." What followed was something no one could have predicted. The Steel Stallions became a full-blown pit crew. Someone pressure-washed the frame. Others cleaned the bearings, replaced the cables, installed new brakes. A few bikers even left, returning with brand-new puncture-resistant tires. Jimmy watched, quietly moved. This wasn't charity. This was brotherhood, of a different kind, but born of the same code. When the repairs were done, Crusher returned with something in hand, a leather vest. Not a club vest, but close. On the back, the Steel Stallion's emblem, and above it one word in gold stitching: respect. "We can't make you a Steel Stallion," Crusher said. "That's a different kind of service, but we can honor yours." He placed the vest on Jimmy's shoulders. It fit perfectly. "Thank you for your service, Marine," he said, extending a hand. Jimmy took it, trembling but strong. A biker wheeled the restored Schwinn forward. It gleamed with fresh paint, new components, and a small Marine Corps emblem mounted on the front fender. "So people know," Reynolds said. As Jimmy prepared to leave, Crusher turned to his crew. "Who's escorting the sergeant home?" Every hand in the bar went up. Minutes later, Jimmy rode down Main Street in a scene that brought traffic to a halt. 24 motorcycles roared behind him, not in mockery but in honor, their engines rumbling like a salute. At his apartment, they formed a line on either side of the walkway. Jimmy wheeled his bike between them. Each biker gave a silent nod of respect. "If you need anything," Crusher told him, "you come to us." The next day, Jimmy rode past the Steel Stallions again. There, mounted beside the door, was a new brass plaque. "Here, respect is earned and remembered." And from that day on, every time Jimmy rode by, something happened. Conversations paused. Helmets came off, engines cut, and every biker, no matter how rough, no matter how loud, stood at attention until he passed. Because some honors need no explanation.